Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we're talking about David. So David is known as one of the greatest leaders in the Bible. He's called a man after God's own heart, and he wrote most of the Psalms. He's kind of a big deal. But David still made some hefty mistakes that cost him dearly. And today Winston is preaching about a situation where David didn't trust in God's strength, but rather trusted in his own strength, or the strength of his army. You see, David fought a lot of battles in his time, and he was known throughout the world as being very victorious and defeating some powerful enemies. This is the guy who even defeated a giant with a few small stones in a slingshot. You'd think after all these victories he would know for sure that God's power is greater than his own. But he still fell into the same trap that we all do, where we sometimes forget or we just don't trust fully and we look to our own strength instead. So what David did is that instead of relying on God's strength, he decided he needed to know exactly how big his army was. So he took the time to go count all the men, which ended up being like over 500,000, that would take a while, to gauge the strength of his crew. It doesn't seem like a big deal to us, but David knew what he was doing was wrong. Immediately after he had done it, he felt bad and he apologized to God. So David knew he hadn't trusted God, and there's still consequences. But God was always near David, and in the end showed David a lot of mercy, and it turns into a pretty beautiful story. The story shows us that sometimes terrible things happen and we make terrible choices and there are terrible consequences. But even through all of these terrible choices, God can still make something beautiful come of it. And it kind of reminds me of the Japanese art of kintsugi. Have you ever broken something you love, like whether it was just an accident or you weren't really being careful with it, and you know that terrible feeling that comes after, that you can't fix it and there's nothing really you can do anymore, you can't go change the past? Well, in Japan, they have this really cool art where they take pottery, which is like bowls or plates, and if it's been broken, they have a method of fixing it using gold or silver. And even though it doesn't look like it did before, it doesn't look as perfect, it still is beautiful in a completely different way. It looks kind of like this. And we too, we can make choices that can break things. If we gossip about a friend or maybe we lie to our parents, that breaks the relationship that we have with our parents or our friend. But God wants us to know that there's always a way to come back from these mistakes. Friendships can be mended, your parents will trust you again. Even if it is going to be painful, God can make these things new, and it can be a really beautiful result in the end. If you're joining us for Sunday School today, we're starting a new series in the book of Proverbs, and the book of Proverbs is all about God's wisdom, so if you're looking for some more wisdom in your life, go check it out. So while I've been thinking about kintsugi, I thought I could make a really cool gift for my parents while I'm visiting them. So I found this really pretty plate, and I thought maybe I could just smash it and then glue it back together and make a nice gift. What do you think?
Brittany!